Hello, my name is Casey Paquette, and this is my submission for the Hays Code assignment. So before we talk about the Hays Code assignment, it was pretty important to understand what it was like before the code, which was the pre-code era. Um, all of a sudden, sound came to film, and women were starting to feel freedom and have fun in film, and they were no longer looked at as pure when sound hit the theaters. The pre-code era crushed the stereotypes about women, basically. These stereotypes were that women were pure, and these women were made for men, in a sense. But when these stereotypes were crushed, it made it fascinating to watch these types of movies. An example is in The Divorced Women. In The Divorcee, women are no longer punished for what a man is expected to do. And virginity doesn't matter. Women were sexy and a free soul. Women can do whatever she wants. She seduces the men with her lust. It is made known that women have the same sexual desire as men. Then all of a sudden, people were starting to feel uncomfortable with the new way of film. And the first step to the Hays Code was that in Chicago, they made it official that the chief of police must review each video before it's shown to the public. And then more and more people started liking that idea, and then more and more people started to feel more uncomfortable with what women were portraying on film. So that's where Hays Code came into play. Hays Code was adopted in 1930 and was strictly enforced in 1934. Which are just a set of rules to regulate films. I'm just going to name a couple. Nudity was forbidden. Adultery and illicit sex will not be seen as right or such. No film ridicule religious faith. And lust, open mouth kissing can't be shown. There's many, many more, but those were just a few. My first source was a novel. Nora Gilbert claims that censorship made movies better. Since the Hays Code, she quoted, "Censored works of art are better, more enjoyable works of art. Censorship is a gift that keeps on giving, defining its powers anew each time that a book is opened or a film lights up the screen." Which, to me, I personally disagree with that, because during that time, women are learning that they have their own rights, and equality is important. And right when women got to express themselves and feel freedom, the Hays Code was enforced, and all that was taken away. I understand the purpose of the Hays Code, which is that not everyone is comfortable with seeing a sexy woman during that time, and change for a lot of people is a bad thing. But enforcing the code resulted in filming with loopholes and finding new ways to cheat the system, because women were finally feeling empowered. Because the code wasn't written for the stage as well, there were many plays that involved a lot of sex and was very political towards the Hays Code. My second source was a magazine, which was about the code prohibited profanity, lasciviousness, suggested nudity, all what I said before. But what I found really interesting in the source was it got into detail about what the code really did to directors and producers. The code eliminated any thought of a men and woman going to bed together. That's why for years married couples in films slept in different beds. A quote from the magazine was, "The theory of imitative behavior was now empowered by the authority of science as well as the common outrage. The Production Code Administration read screenplays before they went into production, demanded changes, and issued a seal of approval to the finished product only if it met code standards." But within this time, sin could be shown in films, but there was consequences. So, for example, an adulterous woman would commonly drive off a cliff or lose a child. So any sin that would happen had to be punished for it. And this was obviously to do with women. Another quote in the magazine was "The morals embedded in the code were foolish and hypocritical, yet these semi-enhanced standards had an extraordinary effect. Producers, directors, and writers were forced to create sex without sex, to produce sexual tension by working around prohibitions extending every manner of preliminary to sex, which I find that fascinating in a way because like to have a romantic movie, you need to have like kissing, you have to have affection, but the producers and directors had to like be wicked creative to find loopholes around that. But I also think the Hays Code was too strict. I understand there needs to be limits, but women and men have sex. Everyone knows that. No need to have, like, I understand there's no need to show them having sex, but people are allowed to watch romantic movies and see two people sleeping together. The Hays Code, I could imagine, didn't allow directors slash producers to be as creative as they wanted to be because all the restrictions they had, but also in the same way, they had to be just as creative to portray a certain meaning in a romantic movie.